I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. It begins!
Superior combat Zoid of the skies, swooping metallic machine bird outlies. The high-performance aerial fighter, Pegasuros, Helic Republic slaughter. Steel wings and powerful thrusters for flight. Pegasuros embodies Air Force flight. Bird-shaped firecraft dominates the air. Take flight, Pegasuros, where eagles dare. Pegasuros, spread your steel wings and fly. Pegasuros, fire laser guns and glide. Pegasuros, bring us from above with speed. Pegasuros, Helic Republic creed. Invasion from dark continent draws near. Dark Zoidians on dark Zoids bring the fear. Fly to intercept and rain down laser fire. Pegasuros, swoop and fly still higher. Gray steel, he roots our foes. Bird of prey, fighter plane in metal prone. on the battlefield now holds sway. Zoid against Zoid combat through night and day. Pegasuros hold sky dominion yet. Empire Zoid forces against him do not bet. Pegasuros, spread your steel wings and fly. Pegasuros, fire laser guns and fly. Pegasuros, bring death from above with speed. Pegasuros, Heliquid public creed. Pegasuros, spread your steel wings and fly. Pegasuros, fire laser guns and cry. Pegasuros, bring death from above with speed. Pegasuros, Heliquid public creed. Supreme monster machine of Zoidstar skies. Whispering steel aircraft with laser eyes. Ultimate orderly and fighter plane. Cosmozoid soars through space to dispense pain. Threatening the Zoid in the air. Cosmozoid shoots down without a care. Sleek and speedy, bird-shaped Zoid with lasers hot. Cosmozoid lays down scaring death, sky box. Cosmozoid, matchless speed in Zoidstar sky. Cosmozoid, wing with lots of machine fire high. Cosmozoid, fire laser guns and missiles fast. Cosmozoid, shoot down your foes to the last. With Zoids rise, Zoidarians fall. Freedom sees for Zoid kind of Zoids call. Heroic combat on planet Zoidstar. Cosmozoid joins the fray from near and far. But destruction falls from blue moon overhead. Evil monster machines where Zoids bring dread. Ignite the blue to send them back to the void. Cosmozoid flying sword till they're destroyed. Cosmozoid matchless speed in Zoidstar sky. Cosmozoid wing with monster machine fire high. Cosmozoid fire laser guns and missiles fast. Cosmozoid shoot down your foes to the last. Cosmozoid's rise, Zoidarians fall. Freedom sees for Zoid kind of Zoid tools call. Heroic combat on planet Zoidstar. Cosmozoid joins the fray from near and far. But destruction falls the blue moon overhead. Evil monster machines red Zoids bring dread. Unite the blue to send them back to the void. Cosmozoid flying sword till they're destroyed. Cosmozoid, match the speed in Zoidstar sky. Cosmozoid, wing with monster machine fire high. Cosmozoid, fire laser guns and missiles fast. Cosmozoid, shoot down your foes till the last. Zoids can wait to Zoid war on Zoidstar. Blue Zoids forces red Zoids, their war leaves its star. Cosmozoid form the backbone of heavens above. You are war hearts in steel, not metal dust. Cosmozoid, matchless speed in Zoidstar sky. Cosmozoid, wing with lots of machine fire high. Cosmozoid, fire laser guns and missiles fast. Cosmozoid, shoot down your foes to the last. Cosmozoid, matchless speed in Zoidstar sky. Cosmozoid.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight.
I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.